Good evening and welcome to The Debate. Plenty to get through with our guests Steve Sidwell and Tim Sherwood. What a game in store this weekend as Jose Mourinho goes back to Stamford Bridge with his Manchester United side. We'll ask how much has he changed since his Chelsea years and who will come out on top. Will he select Alexis Sanchez for the game? Reports today claim the Chilean wants to move away from United. So why haven't things worked out? Chelsea's Karen Carney has condemned abuse she received on social media this week. We'll ask what happens when social media gets out of hand. Neil Warnock thinks decisions go against the smaller teams on the pitch. Is he right? His Cardiff side are in the bottom three. We'll also look at the battle to avoid relegation. As ever, we want your questions too. Tweet us at Sky Sports PL. This is The Debate.
So you're quite happy to be the target, to be manhunted, to use your words?
No, I'm not happy. Honestly, I'm not happy. But if somebody has to be the man, obviously I prefer to be myself than my players.
You're experienced, you can handle all this, surely.
Yes.
Did it actually bother you, any of it?
Yes, bothers me.
Why?
Because I'm a man like you are.
Talking about a coach who has won everything. He has won everywhere. So I think that I have to respect him. But I think also that you all have to respect him.
Huge game live for you on Sky Sports tomorrow lunchtime between Chelsea and Manchester United. It's a game, Tim, that's set up very nicely in the contrast in the way that the two sides have started the season, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, Mauricio Sarri's coming to the Premier League like a duck to water. You know, he's took to it like Conte did, to be fair, in his first season, you know, when they went on to win the Premier League. You would never have guessed they would have an amazing start, what they've had. And the way he's got them to playing, you know, sometimes it's going to take time and he's improving all the time. But the way he got Napoli playing last season, I watched them play against Man City last year. It was the only team who kept the ball away from Manchester City. He wants possession football. He wants flair players to express themselves and play on the front foot. And that's why likes of Eden Hazard and Willian are enjoying their football again. You know, I feel that if it was maybe Conte again or a different manager, they might wanted to leave the football club. But because of the brand of football that they're playing and they're winning games, which obviously makes the camp very, very happy, I think it's onwards and upwards for Chelsea. You know, who knows what they can achieve, you know. And in contrast, you know, Man United have had a very, very slow start. Jose going back to the Bridge where he should get a tremendous reception and he warrants that because he's a legend at that football club. He's lost the last 3 times he's been back to the Bridge. This can be very tough for Manchester United. Yeah, they're on the back of a turnaround against Newcastle, you know, 2-0 down and come back to win 3-2. Everyone was jumping there at Old Trafford. They go away from home now. They probably wouldn't want this game. You know, they probably want someone at the lower realms of the Premier League just to roll over at home, Man United. Be interesting how Jose goes about it, what style he goes to play. Will he take the shackles off him and get at Chelsea? Because you can. Because Arsenal did at the Bridge, and I thought they were very unlucky not to get anything out of the game. If Chelsea have a weakness, it is their defending. And attacking-wise, they are sensational. So it all depends how Jose wants to set his team up, depending on how well the game's going to be for the viewers.
Do you think, with what Tim said there about the way that Jose sets up, coming off the back of such a positive second half against Newcastle, are they going to take that confidence in? Are they going to go and attack Chelsea?
Well, they should do, you know, with that confidence. That they certainly won't play that formation. You know, we've got that back three and Pogba just sitting there and dictating play. I don't think they'll get the time to do that anyway for that Chelsea line-up and the intensity that they press. But listen, the confidence that they showed and the way Old Trafford was rocking, you know, it was like back to the glory days, wasn't it? So it might be a blessing that they're away from home for the players, because sometimes I think it looks like they're scared when they get out on the pitch. Players shying away from the ball as it was in the first half against Newcastle. So they should have every bit of confidence to go to Stamford Bridge and pull out a result.
And Tim talks about the way that Mauricio Sarri's lined the team up first and foremost, maybe moving players around, but also in the sense of how they've approached it different. Is it just more about the way that they feel about how they're playing? Because we heard about Conte and the fact that he was constantly on the players. Every single day was this is what we're going to do, this is how it's going to be. As Sarri, is it just changed the atmosphere at the Bridge, do you feel?
You've got to give massive credit to the football club for the acquisition in Sarri, because they've obviously looked at their squad and the brand of football that they want to play. And obviously, Tim mentioned it earlier about, you know, the football that he played at Napoli last season was fantastic. So the transition for him to come in with the players that he's got, you know, at his disposal, with the technical side of it, how they all want the ball, how they all want to play football, that transition was easy. But to do that in the small space of time, because let's not forget, he come in late, you know, in that summer period. So, you know, to go 8 games unbeaten already, going toe-to-toe with because obviously everyone's still thinking it's going to be Man City and Liverpool. No one's even mentioned Chelsea, sort of, even up until now, really. So, you know, they've been tremendous. They've been a breath of fresh air.
And, I mean, Sarri was very magnanimous in the way that he spoke about Jose there, and the fact that the respect should be afforded. Absolutely. A decorated coach such as himself, it should be rightly lauded across the generations. But is it the way that he comes across at this moment in time?
Who?
Jeff Shreve's asked him about being hunted down by the media, by all the different outlets. But has he made a rod for his own back?
Well, I think Jose is experienced enough to know, and he's no fool. He knows you're managing Manchester United Football Club, one of the, if not the biggest club in the world. You're going to get some stick if you don't win football matches. And he's realised that since he's been at the club. Now, to win Europa League is good. To win the League Cup is good. But it's not what they want. They want to win the Premier League again. They want to start winning it. They want it every year. You know, they used to be up and challenging. Now he's got them into second place last year. They need to go one step further. Now they've had a poor start to the season. What does Jose expect? Of course they're going to give him some stick. You know, that's the manager's job. If you don't get results, you're going to come under fire. And Jose realises that. Perhaps he's just, like he alluded to there with Jeff, he's trying to maybe take the pressure off of his players. Now he needs to, because I think Sid's quite right there. You know, some of them ain't brave enough to play at Old Trafford. You know, it's quite easy for some of these players. They're world-class players, what they've got in their squad. But
what you
sometimes
say about
occasions...
taking it off the players, when he's quite vocally come out and pull players up. Surely that's different signals, isn't it?
He has, but when he was at Chelsea, when Sid played with him at Chelsea, he used to deflect, didn't he? He used to create something else to deflect the result away from the players, and perhaps he needs to start going back to that, and I think that he has over the last few weeks. It's very difficult when the players are reading that their manager is criticising them in public. It's difficult, but Jose knows what he's doing. He does everything for a reason. I don't think he's impulsive at all. I think he thinks about what he does, and he knows what he's doing, and it's for the long-term plan, and hopefully for Man United fans he can turn it around for him. But at the moment it's not going well.
And the man that came to Chelsea nearly 15 years ago, Jose Mourinho, a man that you played for, signed you, Steve. Obviously there is an amount of time that's gone there. We know how intense top-level football is, and he's quite obviously moved around Europe within that time frame. Are we just seeing perhaps the reflection of being in the game, the pressure of the game at that high end, just not taking its toll? But we all get older, we all get a little cranky, don't we? Is that perhaps what we're seeing?
Well, obviously Tim will go on to that.
About being cranky?
On the management side of it. But, I mean, just from personal experiences, obviously, when Jose first come...
Who's Jose you met then?
Well, he was a breath of fresh air when he first come in. You know, he had... You know, I've said it many times before, he had everyone in the palm of his hand, didn't he? He had sort of the press, the media, the fans, the board, the players, opposition players, everyone loved him. You've got to remember that when he obviously come into Chelsea, it was a plain sailing ship, you know. Everything from him going up was all linear, you know, it was all in the same direction, everything going down, the players took on board everything that he wanted, you know, and the fans was all there as well. I've said it before, with Jose now at Manchester United, it seems to me that he's spinning a lot of plates that obviously, listen, that's part of man management as well. Well, not man management, but management in general. Now he's dealing with upstairs the board, things aren't going right, transfers, them sort of coming out. Edward Wood, obviously, after that Leicester game and talking to the press, then he's got to deal with the fans, he's got to deal with the dressing room. Again, Tim will say this, when you're a manager or a coach, what I'm doing now, if you've got a dressing room that polices itself and nothing sort of comes out because there's a lot of stuff coming out at the dressing room that shouldn't be, then it takes a hell of a lot off your shoulders as a coach or a manager. But when you've got to start going in there and start, as he's been doing this season, digging a few people out and singling individuals out, that's when it starts taking its toll.
You said about self-policing. Wayne Rooney's come out and said, hasn't he, that he was one of 5 players that Sir Alex could rely on to make sure that dressing room ran exactly how it did. And I've absolutely no doubt that you two were part of dressing rooms which kind of worked in the same way. But can you see, well, 5 players in the United side that do that? Can you see 1 or 2 players that could possibly do that?
No, not on the same page as the manager. You know, when he had him at Chelsea, he had obviously Drogba, he had Frank Lampard, he had John Terry, Petr. You know, there's no end of guys. A little cartel he had there, you know, just run the dressing room for him. And whatever they said was coming from the manager. So it can't always be from Jose's voice. So they pushed people into line. They knew the job. They knew the Chelsea way, like Rio and the Nevilles and all that, knew the Man United way. So when you're a young kid stepping up or a new signing coming into that, they tell you, put you on the right path and say, they don't need the manager. They don't need the manager to police the dressing room. They do it for you. And I think that Jose hasn't got that. And it's really hard to get that. Sometimes they try and buy that, as Jose's tried. I mean, I don't agree that it's Ed Woodward or Manchester United, the hierarchy's fault. I think they have backed him. I think they've given him £350 million. I think that's an awful lot of money. And I think that they should be doing a lot better than what they're doing for that investment. But you're right, he hasn't got that group there at the moment to take the onus off himself. He's obviously lost Rui Ferreira, his assistant there. So he's took in Michael Carrick, his first job, and Kieran McKenna, who's a young coach who's come up from the youth.
So you're also getting players in that sense that are still just coming out and learning their trade as well on the job.
Learning the trade. So he hasn't got that assistant there, isn't it? He can't be. He's always got to be the bad cop, isn't he? You know, he hasn't got someone. He hasn't got the buffer there. You know, to perhaps get in the ear, like Maurizio Sarri has now with Gianfranco Zola. You know, he's got someone there who's a legend of that football club. Who's
so
a
instantly commands respect as well.
It commands that, but also in the way he played. You know, he's a legend at the football club and the attractive player, and he's almost. You know what's happened even without knowing. Likes of Willian and Eden Hazard and all the flair players, even the Ross Barkleys of this world. Zola's just got him and he's spoken to him and he's told him it's a free range. Just go and as long as you do the work in the right areas, the manager will get you the ball and you've got to impact the game. And I think he's got that buffer. Jose at the moment hasn't got that buffer. He hasn't got that Gianfranco Zola person there because he's got too inexperienced. Number 2, look, listen, don't give him experience straight away. You're going to have to learn through the stages. And I'm not blaming them guys, but he lost Freire, and now he's almost on his own there at the moment.
Steve mentioned and used the analogy of spinning plates, but surely as a manager of these elite-level clubs, that's what it is. That's part of the remit, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think that sometimes you can create your own fires. You know, you have enough problems putting them out, but if you're creating them yourself and then putting them out, and I think at times he picks fights for the wrong people. You can't pick a fight at Manchester United. It's an institution, that football club. You know, it's bigger than any individual. So why should you pick a fight with them? You know, they're not going to work. What are you trying to do? Turn the fans against the board and take the pressure off yourself? Jose knows it's not been good enough. He's a winner. He's a serial winner. He wins everywhere he goes. Maurizio Sarri said it there in his interview. He needs great respect for that. But what's happened in the past is in the past. Jose's still a football manager now. He needs to start winning things. He needs to win the Premier League for the club like Manchester United's stature.
And that's the immediacy, isn't it, of top-level football? It's all well and good having a backstory, but you need to be able to keep updating it, don't you?
Listen, it's a results business, and you know Manchester United is one of the biggest, if not biggest, clubs in the world. The brand itself, you know, what are they? 5 points off fourth, 7 points off the top spot. So, you know, they're going to need to start getting a winning run together because that top sector, if they start getting a run as they've been doing already, and they get further and further away, it's going to be very hard
now
for them to catch.
Could they win it now? Even this
Listen,
early
with
stage.
the Jose effect, you never know. You never know. You could see him going to Stamford Bridge tomorrow and getting a result. You wouldn't put it past him to go on a run and win the league. You know, it's just because he's got that wow factor, that X factor. But if they don't start picking up results and them others do, then I can't see him.
I think this is a massive one tomorrow. You know, this game, either team wins it, they get a real belief that perhaps they can go on and win the league. I mean, Chelsea, if they was to turn over Manchester United tomorrow, they all believe they can go on and win this.
Do you think, I mean, when we look at who could possibly make an impact, the biggest name, obviously, from Chelsea's point of view, Hazard comes flying out, doesn't it? And you mentioned about how, perhaps under Zola, there's that more creative spark, that free reign, if you like. Can Manchester United stop him? Is there a way to stop a player?
Well, he did before. I think that Herrera played against him, didn't he? And man for man him at Old Trafford. very difficult when you've got too many flair players now at Chelsea, and they are being given the rein to go and express themselves. So if they man for man need, and you need two around him to stop him. You know, he can wriggle past people. You know, the game's changed where years ago you can mark someone out of the game and you can use physical attributes, but now you can't touch players like Eden Hazard. You know, because you go down, you get sent off in 10 minutes. The guy is a little maverick, and he's a genius. He picks the ball up and he makes things happen. He really affecting. I mean, the numbers there now this season. He's affecting a football match more than he's ever done on a regular basis.
Is that, as Tim says, Steve? I mean, just the way that he's been handled by his manager, because obviously the skill, the ability has always been there. I mean, they're talking about him possibly aiming for 40 goals out of this season.
Well, listen, as I said before, if Chelsea are going to win the league this year, he needs to perform, and that's what happened last time. When he performed, I think he got PFA Player of the Year, was the best player in the league. Chelsea won the league, so it's no surprise. But they need the others to step up as well, you know, which they have done in the past. But you can't have, you know, you look at the likes of how willingly Man City played last season and scored all their sort of attacking players. Liverpool went toe-to-toe with them. Their front three all chipped in with all goals across the board. If Chelsea are going to have any chance of competing this year, then your Williams, Pedros, Moratas, Girouds, they need to chip in as well.
What happens if Eden Hazard isn't fit, isn't part of it? Do we look at the comparison with Manchester City, who have been without Kevin De Bruyne but have pretty much picked up where they left off? Is that the sign of a team that's ahead of Chelsea, or is that where Chelsea's next big challenge comes if Hazard's not actually in the team?
Well, obviously that would be down to an injury, because obviously his form at the moment is frightening, so he'll obviously be in there for every game. Listen, the squad and, you know, the individuals at Man City is frightening. If Hazard wasn't to play in the games, then it's got to come to the mental strength of the individuals in that team to say, right, it's my turn to step up to the plate today, and I'll take the game by the scruff of the neck and do my job. Giroud does a great job up there. He's not getting the goals, but what he does in his movement, his hold-up play, creating space for others is great. I love Willian. You know, he's endeavoured to work, you know, both ways and get goals as well. So, them attacking players, you know, they'll need to chip in.
But you're right, Prutton, he's so instrumental. I believe you take Hazard out of Chelsea's side, they cannot win the Premier League. I give them a small chance with Eden Hazard in there, but he is so instrumental. I think he is the most influential player at any football club. If you take him away from him, I'm talking about in the Premier League. If you took Lionel Messi out of Barcelona, they're not the same team. You take Eden Hazard out of Chelsea, they're not the same team.
What are you like as a manager in that regard? Do you not tempt fate by contemplating that, or do you kind of think, well, if this does happen, then we need to
talk to him and let him play when he wants to play, you know? And I think he deserves special treatment. He's shown over the years that he is a game changer. He's a match winner, and I just think that he needs to be treated like that.
Well, a player that kind of goes about his game slightly differently, shall we say, different physical attributes. Romelu Lukaku for Manchester United. Is he? He's a player that can quite obviously affect a football match, and his numbers, they don't stack up against Eden Hazard's, do they? But a man for United that can make a difference in the game.
Definitely. You know, you look at how he performed at Everton, that got him the move to Manchester United. Every time he went through on goal, you'd say 9 times out of 10 he's going to put it in the back of there. When you see him go through one-on-one now, you're still thinking, this could go 50-50. You don't know if it's going to go in or not. So he, obviously, as a striker, needs to convert chances, get his confidence up, but he's got all the attributes, obviously, to lead the line. I'd like him, obviously, just his size, his posture and that in games to really...
I mean, look at, there's a comparison. They are different players, aren't they?
Yeah, of course they are.
They're asked, obviously, to do different things on a football pitch. And I think, Tim, the point that you're making is that Hazard's indulged in a way that has brought the best out of him, whereas Romelu Lukaku is in a team that's been... struggling, hasn't it?
I think Romelu would quite like to be at Chelsea now. You know, with the chances what they're creating for their two centre forwards, and I believe Chelsea would love to have him at their football club now, because he would score plenty of goals. I mean, his goal per game ratio is better at West Brom than it is at Manchester United. That says everything. You know, it can't be right. You know, there's too many times he's being isolated up there. You know, I think he looks like a good lad. He puts the work rate in, does the work off the ball, but is he getting... In the big games, does he get enough chances? I don't think he does.
I mean, can you... When we look at away a centre-forward, try and look at the numbers that a centre-forward's producing, you've obviously got to put it in the context of what the team's playing. Like, you look at the first half against Newcastle, where they looked like a bunch of strangers, didn't they? But then second half, something clicks into gear. You get Pogba playing in a slightly different position. Other players come into the game. Goes to what Tim's saying in the sense of it's not just looking at what he does individually. It's about how he fits into the system and how the players around him either work to accentuate his good points or unwittingly go against what he's good at.
Well, I think in that game specifically, I think you've got to give Jose the credit for the substitutions that he made, especially with Mata coming on so early on in the game. I think he changed the game. All subs did. They all made obviously an impact, which is what you want as a manager. But obviously with Lukaku, he's got all the attributes. He just needs that supply. He needs that supply. He needs to get a good run, a goal after a goal, and then fire on all cylinders, because confidence is key for any striker.
When Jose changed it, you would know better than all of us because you've worked with him. Does it go against what he believes in, the second half against Newcastle?
Well, I think
how gung-ho they was because the game was
he just goes for bust there. He literally just went for it. Whenever would you see someone at half-time going 3 at the back? I mean, I remember a few years ago when obviously Jose, when first come to Chelsea, they played Fulham away at the Cottage. I think they was 2-0 down after 20 minutes. He took both wingers off. Yeah. And he changed it with a different formation, and I think they ended up getting a draw or a result out of the game. Yeah. So he's obviously pragmatic in the games that he can see that senses a change. I think the Newcastle game, at half time he sprinted, didn't he, from the touchline down to the tunnel to go and.
But the point I'm making is that if he'd done that at the beginning of the game against the Fulhams and the Newcastles and the teams down the bottom, they wouldn't be 2-0 down in the first place.
And also, why wouldn't he do that from the beginning?
I can understand against a Man City or a Chelsea or.
Yeah, but listen, whenever can you put Pogba in the back three and start making him be a playmaker? It's different in that second half because he knows Newcastle are going to be on the back foot. They're just going to go there and just probably second half get deeper and deeper and deeper. So he knows he's going to get more time on the ball at the back for Pogba to start making their balls and Fellaini to bring on, and obviously Sanchez to come on and get the winner. If I could answer that question, I'll be a Premier League manager.
Look at the other side of town. Pep Guardiola only plays with 3 defenders, really. 2 centre-halves and someone sitting in front, Ferrandino, and the goalkeeper 4. Yeah. The rest of them are all bombing forward, all rotating, all moving. This is what
people say about, obviously, one of his biggest critics at the moment is with Jose. Has he moved with the times? People playing with 3-5-2, 4-1-4-1. He's always been a sort of 4-4-2 sort of kind of guy, or 4-3-3. So he's never really gone with that 3 at the back in games. So he's built into what he knows, his philosophy, and he doesn't seem to want to change that.
Well, speaking of the formations, we did ask the fellas here in the studio to put together their combined Chelsea and Manchester United 11s. We're going to look at Steve's first. Talk us through it, Steve.
Well, I think the keeper situation speaks for itself. I don't think I say that because I don't think we've seen a lot of the Chelsea keeper. The back four was the 2 centre-halves were the hardest one for me. Because obviously...
What, because there was too many to choose from, or not enough that were jumping out?
Not enough that were jumping out from both teams, really. Not many of them have really stood out. Yes, Luiz has come back into the fold and done well. Luke Shaw's been fantastic so far this season with overcoming his injury. Azpilicueta, you know what you're going to get from him. A 7-8 out of 10 performance all the time. I've put Pogba in there because he's got that wow factor. He's got that special performance that can win games. Jorginho's a given because he dictates the tempo and the way that teams play. And then obviously you've got Lukaku leading the line and Hazard's in there because obviously he's the informed player in the Premier League.
A predominance there perhaps of Chelsea players. Tim, for you, have you gone for the kind of form is temporary, class is permanent approach? Yeah. Okay.
I've not gone at all for the form players. I've gone for the players what I feel have been outstanding in the Premier League over the last few years, and they have history of being outstanding. I think Alonso is an exception to that because he's coming, but he's a goal threat. He's a goal threat. He manipulates that ball. He's fantastic. He's quality. He knows he's got a great brain. The goalkeeper obviously speaks for itself. Smalling has won 2 Premier League titles, Manchester United. Rashford, I would have in my team every day of the week because he excites the fans. He gets them off there. He stretches the defenders. Lukaku, because I believe in this formation with the likes of Hazard and Sanchez. Sanchez is the big one. Is the big one for me. He has been nothing. I'm not saying he's playing well at all. He's not. He's let himself down at Manchester United up to now. Is it all his fault? There's a lot. We can go into that, maybe a whole debate.
Don't worry, that's in the next part, Tim. Don't worry, keep your powder dry.
On its own. But we're looking at, before Sanchez came to Manchester United, when he was at Arsenal, everyone wanted him. If anyone could afford him, they would have took him because of what he'd done for Arsenal. He's a match winner in the mould of a Hazard. Different types of players, but he affects the game. Scores goals, assists. He was the main man at Arsenal Football Club. So something's gone wrong. Something's gone wrong with him there at Manchester United. But so I believe, I think Maurizio Sarri said it today in his interview, Man United are probably stronger in depth of squad than Chelsea are. I honestly believe he's right. I think he's right with that. I don't think he's playing games.
That's not him just trying to
I don't think he's playing games. I think that in depth, Manchester United, I'm not talking about at the moment. At the moment, no, absolutely not, because of form. But the quality is in there. If they're played in the right way, their quality in depth is there at Manchester United to win the title.
How do you see the game going tomorrow? Can I get a prediction?
I see Chelsea winning. On form, I see Chelsea winning.
Steve, have you made your mind up yet?
Yeah, I do see goals, but I see Chelsea win as well.
OK, Chelsea win then from both fellas here. OK, after the break, we're going to be discussing the Alexis Sanchez conundrum. Please join us in just a couple of minutes. Welcome back to the debate. Tim Sherwood and Steve Sidwell are alongside me. Our next topic is something that had Tim straining at the leash just before the break. Alexis Sanchez for Manchester United. What's going on? Why isn't it the player that we saw at Arsenal?
I think it's really difficult to pinpoint it. From the outside, you don't see what goes on every day. The reason I say that is because we've all been footballers. You can't just turn up on a Saturday and play the game and expect to be brilliant. It's the environment that you're working in every single day on the training field. You have to have a happy environment. You have to be doing the patterns, doing the movements and enjoying your teammates and minute playing the ball. Someone who's an offensive player like Alexis Sanchez, he knows he wants to play and he wants to go forward all the time. You don't want to do too much defensive work. Now, I always feel that players like him will do the defensive work for you if you give them the sweets, if you give them the tickle going forward and allow them to get the ball and to express themselves going forward. I don't think he's getting enough of that. I think he made a poor decision. He had an opportunity to go to Man City. I think if he took that, he would be a superstar now. I really believe that he's that good. I think for whatever reason, he chose to go to Manchester United and it hasn't worked out.
What reason would that be, do you think?
I don't know.
I mean, as a cynic from the outside,
you could reports. A lot of people. I know what you're alluding.
I know you're alluding. It's too expensive for us, isn't it? Basically,
it's money. Possibly it is, and it's up to him. It's his life.
Absolutely.
You know, to go there. But you can't argue that he's chose one of the biggest clubs in the world. And he possibly didn't know how it would turn out for him. And he probably couldn't have imagined, or it's been a nightmare for him up to now. I mean, hopefully he'll bounce. And go into the net with a confident shot in the arm, really, with a goal he scored against Newcastle, winning goal, you know, gets everyone lifted and hopefully he'll take some performances and show what he can do. But at the moment, he's been nothing like the Alexis Sanchez we saw in the Premier League and loved to watch over 5 or 6 years.
Could that come down to personal life, though? You know,
possibly. Yeah.
Even like, you know, you look at him when he was at Arsenal, playing his best football, being in London, being, you know, the club like Arsenal, being the main man in the dressing room, you know, the way he was on the pitch, then going to move up to North, you know, well, obviously the weather's not quite better up there than it is obviously down London. Is it more of a personal factor where he's driving into training straight away, sort of downbeat, you know, so because some people get the release from training, so obviously when it's not even working at the club, he's going in and out of work every day on a downbeat, you know, not happy. So is it the personal factor that's more overriding the
that we don't know, do we? But
exactly.
It certainly look down the road at the Man City players, look like they're happy. You know, and they don't play every week. You know, and it's not, the weather's not different to Man City to Man United. So, you know, they look. De Bruyne certainly is someone who's come from Chelsea and they had a spell in Germany, but he looks a different player. I mean, Pep Guardiola likes to have that environment. Everyone enjoys going into training because they're moving with the ball, and they play in a certain style which really expresses the offensive players.
So does that mean that it would have been set? This is obviously a little bit hypothetical, but it would have been set up differently at Manchester City than it has been so far at Manchester United. You said that he obviously needs to take responsibility for his own game, but. Is he in an environment that allows him to flourish? Do they play in a way that
I don't think
accentuates what he's good at?
But I hate always trying to make excuses for players. I think Alexis Sanchez needs to get in front of that mirror and look at yourself. And am I doing enough to get myself in this team and playing like I did at Manchester United? Yeah, he can have all the excuses. We can all make the excuses for him. Do we actually know? We don't see him day to day. We don't see what Jose's doing with him day to day and how he really wants him to play. But what we do know is the facts are he's not getting the ball in offensive areas. He's not affecting the football match. He's not scaring any defences like he did at Arsenal. He's not winning games single-handedly for Manchester United at the moment like he did for Arsenal. We're seeing a completely different Alexis Sanchez.
Well, I mean, Jamie Carragher made an interesting point in the Daily Telegraph today about likening him to Fernando Torres, a big move. And I'm not being a doom-monger when I talk about Alex Sanchez. I mean, a lot of games on the clock, nearly 700 games, professional games, which is a lot for a 29-year-old player. I mean, and I think you made the point, Steve, about the way that he plays as well. He's not a winger that spends half his time scratching his backside on the touchline, does he? No. He gets involved in the game from front to back when he's at his best. Yeah. Is that something to perhaps look toward the future about his effect on games?
I think that's key to his game. You know, when he's at it, and he's harassing and he's pressing people when he's 110 miles an hour, that's when he plays his best football. We haven't seen that at Manchester United. You know, I remember watching a game not too long ago where he'd give the ball away 4 or 5 times on the bounce, trying to just play that worldly sort of through ball or it just didn't come off all the time. Yeah, fair play for seeing it and trying to achieve it, but sometimes you've got to play yourself on your own way into the game. We've all done it. We've all been into games where we've had a nightmare spell. We're going, right, next one, just play it simple, feed your way into the game. So I look back on when he was still at Arsenal and his body language wasn't great. That sort of last 6 months that he had at Arsenal, where sometimes when the goals were being scored, when he wasn't scoring them, he weren't going to celebrate with the lads. He was moaning a lot. Some of his hands gestures were going up in the air as if to say, I'm a step, I'm a level sort of above it. Maybe you look back and you think, is he cut his nose off to spite his face? Because if you look at him now in that Arsenal team and the way that they're playing, he'd be scoring for fun.
And there was quite a sense of responsibility placed on Sanchez, wasn't there, in the Arsenal setup? Yeah. And I'm not saying he's part of the rank and file now at Manchester United, but at what stage? I mean, what's the percentage of him taking responsibility for his own game and the environment that he's in? Because if you look, I mean, obviously the numbers are slightly skewed by the fact of the games that he's played at each club. Obviously, he's played more at Arsenal and is still very much in its infancy at Manchester United. But does that kind of reflect what you said about him taking responsibility for his approach and his effect on a football match?
Yeah. But I put him in my combined side. You saw that, but it was because of the stats on the left-hand side, not the ones on the right-hand side. I know what he's got. He's not turned into a bad player overnight. Jose's going to have to find... I think he's good enough. He's not... For me, he's not Eden Hazard. That's a different level entirely. But I think he's good enough amongst our Manchester United squad to find a place where he can affect it a little bit more than at the moment what he's doing. He's not happy within the environment, or if City's right, or within the system of how they want to play. But the principles should be the same. You know, Jose surely is not telling him, I don't want you to express yourself, I don't want you to take on players, I don't want you to find that killer pass, as we alluded to. But he did always give the ball away at Arsenal. He gives the ball away too much at Manchester United. I don't mind that. At Arsenal, he got away with it because he got the ball 20 times in them areas. And he'd give it away 10 times, but he scored goals and he affected the game. At the moment at Manchester United, in them areas just behind their midfield, he's probably getting it 4 or 5 times a game, where he used to get it, even in a team like Arsenal, he was getting it 20 times, you know, and he was affecting the game. So I don't think he's getting the ball in the correct areas with enough space, but I hate to always try and find an excuse for a footballer, because I think he needs to try and do a little bit more himself.
Well, Alexis Sanchez is a player that does interact with his social media followers. Nearly 10 million followers he has on his social media platforms. But we've seen the darker side of what social media can throw up in the Karen Carney episode that's happened this week. Now, gents, I mean, when we talk about footballers being untouchable, being aloof, not being able to kind of touch base with the man in the street, Karen Carney's scored a goal in the Champions League for Chelsea, which she's captain of, against Fiorentina, and then is trolled on Instagram with, I mean, the most despicable use of language. This is the quotes that I'm reading from the paper, along the lines of, I'm going to rape and kill you, and just the most abhorrent kind of abuse that could possibly be directed, not just as a football player, but at a person as well. Yeah. Now, this is obviously at the extreme of what this platform can create. Are we in an age now where is it the Wild West in the sense that this can happen anywhere to anybody at any time? And are the players needing to be, and the staff around these players needing to be educated in a way to armour themselves against what is quite obviously just rank stupidity?
Well, obviously social media first and foremost is a great tool to, as you say, to connect, to integrate with fans, whether that be Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, any of these lot. So it's a great way to obviously, with now, when you get to games and you come out off the bus, you don't sign autographs and there's no open training sessions. You know, it's very sort of compact. You're away from the fans, which is a shame. But when you are on a social media and when you do interact, then you obviously leave yourself open. So you've got to be straight from the word go. You've got to be bold enough and brave enough to take criticism when it comes your way. Because everyone wants to go straight on social media when they've played well, when they've scored a goal or scored a hat-trick, and look at all the plaudits. It amazes me how many players, and I've sat on a bus or the planes when we fly back, of how many players get on a bus or on the transport and they look at social media straight away. Yeah. They go straight away to see, you know, more so than not when they've played well. Obviously, they still look when they've had a bad game because some find it funny, some take it to heart. I see, obviously, when England played, when the other night, obviously, when they played well in Spain, I think there was tweets coming out within the first hour from Harry Kane and that. So, you know, it's great on that platform. But when you are leaving yourself open to abuse, and it is sickening abuse, I mean, that is just totally uncalled for. What this is disgusting for Karen. But you have to take it. You have to take it on the chin because you're leaving yourself open to that criticism to come directly to you. You see it straight away, straight after the game. It'll be the first thing you see. So, and what worries me is that that now comes down to even the younger players. So I'm coaching under 16s at the moment. They're all on social media. So they could be putting pictures up or going to this game or I've done well here. All it takes is a few, as you say, the minority to get involved, but these kids can't deal with that. They wouldn't know what to do. You know, they're a little bit sort of wet behind the ears when it comes to that sort of streetwiseness of how to deal with that. And then there's not enough put in place from higher up in football clubs or PFA of safeguarding the kids and how to deal with that.
Is that the most pertinent point, though? Because we're talking about a player with 133 England caps, a veteran of her sport and the teams that she's played for. So would have seen a lot of what the game can throw at you, but still something like this, because of the wording of it, because of the language of it, this hits at a base human level, doesn't it? And as a manager in that position, that's then you're not dealing with the player anymore, you're dealing with the person there, right? And how to safeguard, as Steve said, that word safeguard, players from that type of abuse.
Absolutely, but Steve's right. I mean, they leave themselves wide open to it. I mean, it's disgusting what's happened there to Karen. You know, no one wants that. You know, you wouldn't wish that on your worst enemy. You know, but it's a cruel world out there. You know, and I don't think it should be isolated just to football because it's not. It's society, and it's people are getting bullied online, and it's happening all the time. You know, when you're online, you're going to leave yourself wide open to it. I don't do it myself. I don't really understand it. I don't understand why people want to do it, but I don't criticise them for being on it. And as a manager, you understand if you have a bad game, the players are going to get slaughtered. You know, there's more people going to hammer them when they have a bad game than there is if they do well when they have a good one. You know, people want to go on there and they want to criticise all of the time and they want to find negatives, and unfortunately that's the nature of the world, and that's the way the world is changing, and it's making it more and more difficult for managers to get their players' head in the correct space, to just concentrate on football because they've got so many outside influences.
This happens week in, week out. Even this language that's aimed there at Karen. This happens all the time. You know, after every game, whether it be a Tuesday, Saturday, you name it, if you play bad, they're coming for you.
I had it. I mean, when I played, I would have had death threats, but you in the end, you're opening envelopes, you know, and you're reading them. You know, and I'm sure if it was online back in the day, when I would have got it instantly. But you know, you wait for the post to come in. You know, it happens. It's part and parcel of, unfortunately, of being a high-profile footballer or a football manager. It's wrong. We know that, and we're not condoning it. But it's disgusting, and that certainly is totally uncalled for.
Well, all credit to the way that Karen and Phil Neville and the rest of the organisations around those two people have dealt with the situation thus far. OK, after the break, Neil Warnock has been talking about his side's chances of getting decisions at the bottom end of the table. We'll discuss that next.
I'm a massive fan of VAR, if I'm honest. I think VAR can't come soon. I think it'll affect the big clubs more than the little clubs, if I'm honest, because I do think they get decisions sometimes that VAR would sort of go the other way and say that, you know, they can't have that. And we had a meeting last week with the VAR people and the referees and Neil Swarbrick, and I thought it was excellent what we were told. But unfortunately, might be a bit too late for me, VAR.
Well, he always does say it with a smile on his face, doesn't he? Can you understand the point that he's making, Tim?
No.
Good, thanks for joining us. Yeah. See you next week.
I know, listen, Neil's trying to find every angle, isn't he, you know, just to try and get an edge. Hopefully some referees are looking at that and thinking that they've been hard done by over this season. Which has been a tough start for them, but no one expected it to be easy for them.
I mean, no one expected them to actually get into the Premier League, did they?
He's done a brilliant job. Done a brilliant job to get them into this far. You know, hardly spent any money. Got Championship players, and probably going to be back in the Championship next season.
So it's going to be a tough season. But I mean, when he talks about the fine margins of what the Premier League football is, and when you're in that position, can you get that semblance that, or the appearance that these decisions are going against you? Is that more where Neil's coming from, rather than actually genuinely thinking that some?
I think you create your own luck as well. I think when you're, I mean, I was in a Fulham team that got relegated from the Premier League, and when you was down there, it did seem like that nothing did go your way. You didn't get that rub of the green. I do feel definitely previously that decisions did go for big clubs. You know, I remember there was a stat, wasn't there, about when the last time there was a penalty awarded at Old Trafford years ago. It was just non-existent, wasn't it? And again, with referees, with some of the bigger players, maybe being on the pitch with referees saying Giggsy, you know, things like that. That happens, but that could be a personal touch from the referee trying to get amongst the players. Listen, it's an even playing field now with these. Once the VAR comes in, you're going to hope it's going to create a black or white situation. You know, it done well over the World Cup.
Or just a nicer shade of grey.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It does create still an element of uncertainty, isn't there? It's still not a clear cut. There are some that are clear cut, but there's still a few where you're thinking, I'm not too sure there. So, I mean, it's going to be a learning process, but...
Well, the figures themselves don't... I mean, I know the point that Neil's trying to make, but if we look at actually how it kind of manifests itself in the numbers that we're talking, I mean, there's not... It doesn't necessarily suggest that there is that disparity, does it, Tim?
No, it doesn't. And from the outside, you would think that all the big teams get the 50-50 decision in their favour, but the stats don't suggest that. So, like I say, Neil's just trying to find he's an experienced manager. He's just trying to find every little bit, every little fine detail to try and get himself an edge. And maybe this weekend he might find himself with a player taking a penalty.
Well, I mean, it is going to be an uphill task, isn't it, to a team, as we said earlier on, I mean, did so well to actually get back into the Premier League with the way that they're... Not necessarily the way they play football, because it's effective, and that's the most important thing, football, isn't it? Being effective. But the personnel that Tim suggests about these teams, these players that are in the Premier League now, you get the feeling that their chance at Premier League football came through the fact that they got promoted rather than actually getting cherry-picked by a Premier League side. Yeah,
look, it's always going to be difficult, and then obviously when they got promoted, because they set their stall out last season, obviously to finish as high as they possibly could. No one see them getting promoted. So when they obviously got promoted, then it comes down to the meetings and the budgets, and then what the ambition is for the season after. Now, obviously, listen, they want to finish anything above the bottom three. That would be a massive achievement. Then you have to build on that slowly. So obviously the budget that was there this year, they got an awful lot of money for getting promoted, but they're obviously still thinking, look, what's the chances of really staying in this division? So we can't get caught by blowing a lot of money by wages and bringing players in, because if we're going to go down, then we're going to be stuck in limbo. If they stay up, it will be a miracle in my eyes, but only because at the moment they struggle to score.
Well, I mean, it might be a miracle, but we can actually hear from Neil Warnock now about what he thinks his side's chances are of staying in the Premier League.
So if you're a betting man, talked about those odds, would you put money on Cardiff to stay up this season?
No, I wouldn't, not if I was a betting man. But, I'd put other people's money on it if you wanted. But I wouldn't have put a penny last year on us getting promotion. I'd have said, keep your money in your pocket, don't be stupid. some people want to cut out a lot of money, so some people might win a lot of money this year.
It makes a very good point, though, doesn't it? When
Very
he
good.
puts it in context about getting into the Premier League to start with.
Absolutely, that's the dream, and they've got to chase it. They have to believe. When they go out there on a Saturday afternoon, they line up against the superstars of the Premier League. Them players have to believe they can go and win a game. If they do not believe it, they ain't going to win. There's no chance they can do it. They have to look at Huddersfield last season. Got promoted, spent very little money, and stayed in the Premier League. You know, it's a difficult task every single year. And City's right. I mean, it doesn't guarantee you anything. Well, Wolves, pretty much. I mean, they've had to spend a fortune, and they're going to give themselves a real opportunity. Everyone's talking so highly about Wolves. In contrast, £100+ million at Fulham,
Just sitting outside the top
still
bottom
struggling.
three,
So that's the risk you take. It's not about who and how much you spend, it's about who you spend it on. Now, obviously, he's got a wealth of experience now. Neil Warnock, he would have known players. I think they've tried to go the Sean Dyche mould at Burnley, you know, keep it British, you know, try and find them players. It's going to take time. They might have to go back again to come forward again. I think he's the right man to steer that club for the long term.
And it's pretty close down there, isn't it? When we look at the teams that are down there, Southampton, Fulham, Huddersfield, Newcastle and Cardiff making up the bottom 5. Southampton only surviving the second to last game of last season. Do we sense that, as much as we talk about a title race, it again is going to go right to the wire with the teams down at the bottom?
Yeah, definitely. Listen, as I said before, I've been involved in relegation battles, and the key element that I found throughout the season is that you've got to compare your points to your games. So if you've played 10 games and you've got more points, then great. If you've played 20 games and you've got more points, great. Because at the end of the season, you'll have 38 games played, and if you've got more points, then you're on that 40-point mark and you're going to stay up. So if you can keep to that balance throughout the season, that will give you an indication of where you're going to be. It's difficult. It's a long road. There's going to be a lot of times for these clubs where they're going to go on a losing run and they can't see the next win, but they just got to keep plugging away. I mean, Brighton, when they stayed up, obviously last season, they ended up having a really good March. I think it was an awful December, January, and February, but they they cemented their status in the Premier League in March by sort of winning three games out of 5 or 4 out of 5. So there'll be elements of that throughout the season. It's just everyone staying on the path, you know, enjoying it because it is an experience, and hopefully they'll have a chance of staying up.
Do it, guys. I will spare you actually the questions of actually telling me who's going to go down. We'll keep that part dry for another day. Here for you is what's coming up on Sky Sports. Premier League is back tomorrow lunchtime. Chelsea take on Manchester United, 11:30am on Sky Sports Premier League, and main event. Tea-time game on Saturday is Derby versus Sheffield United, 5:15pm. That's on Sky Sports Football and also on Main Event. Super Sunday is at Goodison Park. Everton take on Crystal Palace, 3:30pm. And the Monday Night Football is at the Emirates as Arsenal host Leicester, 7pm, both on Sky Sports Premier League and Sky Sports Main Event. The debate is back on Tuesday. Liam Rossini and Neil Lennon are the guests, 10pm, Sky Sports Premier League and Sky Sports Main Events. So thank you to my guests, Tim and Steve. I hope we've had a very good time. We've had an enjoyable time, haven't we, fellas? You've got to say yes, we're near the end. OK, thanks for joining us on The Debate. See you next week.